under God, indivisible, with
Visible,
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We survived that. Welcome to our April virtual BET meeting. Out of order, you'll notice on your agenda, we have an item. We have to pass a motion to continue our ability to do these virtual meetings. I will call on Ms. Fox-Lotus.
I move to extend the motion to permit the BET to continue the use of electronic participation to June 15th, 2020.
Do I have a second?
Motion.
I have a motion seconded by Ms. Krummick. All those in favor?
No,
Aye.
hold on.
Hold on. I must say, I'm normally I would think that this would pass under unanimous, but I think I have to do a roll call vote. So the clerk of the board, Mr. Drake, if you would call the roll.
Okay, here comes Ms. Cruiser.
Aye.
Ms. Hess.
Yes.
Ms. Krummick.
Yes.
Ms. Moriarty.
Yes.
Ms. Tarkington.
Yes.
Mr. Mason.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Ms. Vasiliotis.
Ms. Vasiliotis votes yes.
Mr. Raymer.
Yes.
Mr. Deuce.
Yes.
Mr. Weisbrod.
Yes.
Ms. Erickson.
Laura Erickson votes yes.
That is 12-0.
That motion has passed. For everybody who understands, there was a directive from the state permitting this, so we're just being in compliance with us approving this item going forward. We're now good till June 15th. That brings us to our regular agenda, which is a request for budget amendments. Under routine, we have an item that our budget committee has taken up, and we will be recommending it. So I am going to call for Ms. Tarkington to get the item before us and give us a committee report. And with that, Ms. Tarkington?
Yes, we have ED 11 from the Board of Education requesting an additional appropriation of $1.2 million. Would you like the committee report now?
That item is before us. It doesn't need a second. It's on behalf of a committee. This committee report followed by discussion.
Yes, Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Tony Jones, and Schools Chief Operations Officer, Sean O'Keefe, presented the request. Mr. O'Keefe updated the committee on the need for $1,120,000 to cover a shortfall due to additional education tuition and transportation settlements, and for two unbudgeted items, $40,000 for rental of the shoring for the GHS bleachers, and $40,000 for custodial overtime for deep cleaning of schools due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The BOE is in the process of identifying savings since the school's closure on March 12th, including lower busing transportation costs. As a result of this, only a partial appropriation may be required. Because the RTM Education Committee postponed the item until the RTM's May meeting, it was suggested by Dr. Jones and Mr. O'Keefe that the BET Budget Committee also postpone. The committee then voted to postpone with a vote of 4-0-0.
Thank you. Discussion on the item? If not, I will entertain the motion from the Budget Committee to postpone this item. And if I'm understanding, you postponed the item in its entirety to our May meeting.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So I would now move that the full BET vote to postpone this item until the May meeting.
Seconded.
Second, that's moved by Ms. Tarkington, seconded by Mr. Raymer. Discussion. Mr. Drake, again, in the modern world, we must call for a roll call vote. So if you would.
Happy to. And I will. One quick thing. Do we have Kathy Sidor with us?
Yes, she is an attendee.
Okay, good. I guess we can't hear from her, but that's great. That's very helpful. All right, let's vote on the postponement of ED 11, and we'll start from the other end of the virtual table. Ms. Erickson.
Yes.
Mr. Weisbrod.
Yes.
Mr. Deuce.
Yes.
Mr. Raymer.
Yes.
Ms. Vasiliotis? Karen?
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. Yes, Karen Fasiliotis votes yes.
Oh, good. I vote yes. Mr. Mason?
Yes.
Ms. Tarkington?
Yes.
Ms. Moriarty?
Yes.
Ms. Kremick?
Beth Kremick, yes.
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Ms. Cruiser?
Yes.
That's 12-0.
Thank you, Mr.
Lauren,
Nick.
Lauren,
Thank you
can you
very much.
could you speak, please, Lauren?
Me? Yes.
Okay.
I'm here.
No, okay, I just want to move you over.
Okay.
Okay, so the next, I just before I move on to the assessor's report, I will send communication. As you know, the RTM meets tonight. I will tell RTM leadership that we have postponed that item till our May meeting, and it's still with us, and it'll automatically come back to us then. Moving on, item number 4, assessor's report. As I mentioned earlier, you'll see different people popping into the screen as come in. Lauren Elliott, our assessor. Long time no see.
How are you?
Welcome. Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so good afternoon, members of the BET. I'd like to present the assessor's report for April 2020. First of all, in general, we are doing our best at this time to respond to all inquiries to the assessor's office. We're having most people send emails to our one email box, the assessor at greenwichct.org. It seems to be working fine. Okay. The senior program, as you read in my report, the executive order of 7S has extended the deadline for the state senior program to August 15th. Unfortunately, we've asked legal counsel, and this does not include the local option or the local senior and disabled portion of that as well. So currently we are under the assumption that we are going to try to get in as many of the seniors by May 15th as possible. We are contacting them via mail or phone, and hopefully we'll be able to get most of them to send us their information. If we were to extend it, I believe it would have to go before the RTM. It is a local ordinance, so I think in order to change the local ordinance, that's what would have to happen. Second, let's go on to the next item. The income and expense reports that are due to us every year on June 1st, they have been sent out as scheduled on April 15th. According to the executive order as well, that deadline has been extended to August 15th. That is a concern considering, as you've also read, that we have the reval going on here in 2020. So that will make our evaluation of commercial properties a bit tight as far as that is concerned. Okay. I'll just open it up for questions because I'm sure a lot of you have questions. So
if you would use your hand and we'll go by the order which your hands go up for any questions. Ms. Tarkington?
Yes, I wanted to ask Ms. Elliott, has the Commission on Aging been contacted in terms of the ordinance and the fact that the local seniors need to have the ordinance extended? And therefore, I believe they're the initiators of that ordinance. I didn't know if there was any town hall or whatever we call it discussion at this point in time on that issue.
yeah, I did email Lori Contadino with this fact. I haven't heard back. I'm sure she's trying to probably round up the board and find out exactly how they want to proceed on this matter. But they do. I forwarded the email, and they do know that this is a concern, that the extension does not include the local ordinance portion of it.
And I had one more question. Have you had any contact or dialogue with the vendors who would be doing the reval, just to, discuss with them the fact that such things, as you just pointed out, the income and expense forms are going out later than would have been expected in the normal process?
I've talked to both the vendors. I've talked to Tyler and John Ryan. Tyler is the one that's doing our residential portion, and then John F. Ryan is doing the commercial. They say they can do it either way at this point. I guess the question is for the residential portion, what do we do about those 1,672 properties that we have not inspected? In the extension, in the executive order, there was an option to send out a mailer. And I believe the town of Greenwich did that back in 2009 and didn't have a very good response to that. And my opinion is that's not, if possible, it would be best if we figured out some way to just to get onto these properties by the time we do the revaluation, which whatever that is, whether it's as of October 1st, 2020 or October 1st, 2021. The mailer, first of all, the response is not 100%. It was about a third. And second of all, you don't get really that great detail and information back from those mailers. It's not a great alternative, I'd say.
Mr. Raymer?
Two questions, if I may. First, at what point did you expect, or do you expect, to have a recommendation to the BET as to whether or not the town should be seeking a postponement of the revaluation date?
I think we could figure that out. I would assume in the next 2 months or so, May or June. I think either way. I definitely think we need to make a decision one way or other come June, July, just because if we're going to go forward with this, we need to figure out a way to go forward with it and how we're going to deal with the issues that this raises. So, but we have some time to figure this out, and I think it needs to be discussed not only through the BET but through other organizations as well.
Second question, at the top of page 3 of your report, you have a reference there that Attorney Jean McLaughlin retired on March 6, 2020. It was Attorney McLaughlin who was handling the tax appeals previously. Do I have that correctly?
Yes, he handled all of them. He handled
all of them.
Yes, all of them. Mm-hmm.
Then your report goes on to say all tax appeals are being continued due to COVID-19. And then it says, working with town attorney Vincent Marino and outside counsel attorney Philip Perez of Cohen and Wolf, the filing of appearances for all tax appeals. With the filing of appearances for all tax appeals. So am I understanding that Attorney Marino will be representing the town on some of the tax appeals and Attorney Perez on some others?
Okay, so I don't know the exact answer to that. So I have written the town attorney Marino, and I have asked for him to give me a list of the appearances, who's filed for which properties. I do know, and I received an email a while ago that Philip Pears of Cohen and Wolf was going to appear on 5 of these tax appeals. I don't know if he's going to be appearing on more of those or less of those. And I honestly, at this point, do not know how this is going to be handled. So I've asked for a list of who's going to be taking which tax appeals. And from that, we will then move forward and try to figure out, okay, how is this going to work for the town of Greenwich? Because as you know, Jean McLaughlin was a staff. There was no issue. He was a member of the Greenwich staff. So I will hopefully nail them down. And as soon as I find out, I'll let you know.
When you're talking about the arrangements, you're talking about the attorney's fees arrangements? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about trying to figure out who's going to do what and if there's any criteria to do that either. I mean, there should be some sort of continuity. If you're going to take certain appeals, you should be taking similar properties, and it would just be more efficient to do it that way too. I think there needs to be a discussion as to how if we're going to outsource some of these to co, we need to know which ones and how they're going to do it and how we're going to proceed.
Yeah, from an attorney's fees basis, I'd like someone on behalf of the town to have authorized the cost if they're being handled as fees as outside counsel, as opposed to under the retainer arrangement of Attorney Marino. I can imagine that likely the cases that Attorney Marino is handling that he's handling, that's probably part of his retainer arrangement. But I'm not thinking that the time of Cohen and Wolf is part of the monthly retainer arrangement. They're no longer under monthly retainer with us unless they're being paid by Attorney Marino.
Correct.
So if perhaps that could be clarified, I don't know exactly who should be authorizing that, but it seems to me that somebody at the town should know and should have authorized it. I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Raymer. Next will be Ms. Moriarty, followed by Ms. Vassilos.
Yes, I wanted to circle back to the local senior tax credit. What would be the impact to the town if we were to delay the filing requirement to match the August 15th deadline for the state requirement?
It wouldn't be a problem. It wouldn't. I think the only thing would be is that it would help the seniors out, I'm sure, number one. Number two is we would just not know the actual impact of the local property tax relief until August, probably not until September 1st. But I've already given you an estimate of what I think that is anyway. So it would be easier. The only thing is at this point in time, we have to,
The approval processes.
Yeah.
In your judgment, it would be easier for seniors to understand these deadlines if they were.
Right. Yes, it's going to be very confusing for them to understand that the state has extended it for the state program, but you still need to get it in by May 15th if you want to get the local program. So it would be easier for the seniors, and I'm sure for everybody for that matter, if we had one deadline. And like I said, the only impact it would have is that they may not see that on their July bill, but it would definitely be there on their January bill. And I wouldn't necessarily I wouldn't be able to give you the exact impact until sometime in September.
I mean, I would like to have a discussion, Mr. Chair, on the advisability of making that recommendation and seeing if our town processes can't be moved forward to approve a modification to that ordinance. I guess it would have to go through the Board of Selectmen and then the RTM. The RTM meets May, what date is that? Is it after the 15th already? But if possible, it seems to me it would be a much cleaner program for our seniors to understand that there's a single deadline for both the state and the local program.
I can answer that. I actually can answer that question. I asked the town attorney whether or not the town could extend to our local program to seniors, and the answer was no, because the executive order does not include the portion of the state statute that covers the local ordinance.
Does the state statute talk about a May deadline, or is that left to the municipality?
It doesn't authorize you to change. It doesn't authorize you to bring that into the extension period. The executive order, I'm sorry, our town attorney has asked the governor's office to clarify the language. And we're hopeful that they will clarify that with another executive order, but we haven't heard anything yet.
What I'm proposing is not to, even if an executive order clarification doesn't come through to cover the local program, if we just as a BET make the recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to take this item up and approve a modification to the ordinance for 2020, and then to have it be put on the May 8th RTM call so that they could vote on that ordinance as well.
Okay, we'd have to ask, I mean, I think that that's a viable solution if it is indeed allowable under the current executive order. I'm not sure. I mean, I was told by the town attorney that because it's not covered in it, you can't mess with it. But
I would think it would make sense.
Ordinance, so
it would make sense that if the executive order is silent on it, it doesn't take any authority away from the municipality to make its own decisions.
True. Well, we'll get clarification of that.
Okay.
Well, and that is why I suggested looking at the ordinance and having the senior center move forward with that immediately. That's why I asked about had Lauren contacted them.
let me ask a question of the chair, Mr. Mason. If, how would you want to proceed on this? I would like the issue pursued, and if we can modify the date from May 15th to August 15th, it seems to be more appropriate and certainly better, clearer for the seniors on the process of what they need to do. Does our board need to take up a motion to recommend this to the Board of Selectmen and the RTM, or is there another mechanism?
My first answer on that would be I would ask the law committee to look at that. I think we need to know the answers to that either way formally. And I would say we could easily add that to, we could create a special meeting near one of our other meetings. We have several of them coming up to do that. I'd be interested to know the answers to that. And if possible, extend those dates to be consistent with the state directive. I'm not seeing any big disadvantage to us doing that. It's probably advantageous. So I would ask advice of our law committee members. Can they take an approach at this to get us these answers?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that can be done. I would also just like to say that the call has been closed for the May meeting for the RTM as of Friday. So we would need to get something to the moderator as a placeholder as soon as possible.
Okay.
If that's the action we wish to take.
Okay, so is there anybody with any disagreement on digging into this? And I can certainly, if we think that something can be done, we certainly can reserve a placeholder on the RTM call. Any objections? What I'm avoiding, Ms. Moriarty, is if you would like to make it a formal motion, then we have to make a motion to add an item to the agenda that needs to pass 2/3 vote in that process. So if I'm not seeing anything against this, I would just ask our law committee to proceed with it accordingly.
Seems fine.
Okay. Ms. Vassilotis, I still had you next to speak. Ms. Tarkington has her hand up, but she's already spoken.
No, but I said what I needed to say. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Tarkington?
Yes, I was going to make a motion to accept the assessor's report.
What do you want to do that for? I have a motion to accept the assessor's report for April 2020. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Raymer. Discussion? Again, until my Robert's coaches tell me it's okay, I have to call for a roll call vote. So, Mr. Drake.
Yeah. Ms. Kreuzer,
Yes.
Ms. Hess,
Yes.
Ms. Krummick,
Beth Kremick, yes.
Ms. Moriarty,
Leslie Moriarty, yes.
Ms. Tarkington,
Yes.
Mr. Mason,
Yes.
and me, I'm a yes. Ms. Vasiliotis,
Karen Vasiliotis, yes.
Mr. Raymer,
Yes.
Mr. Deuce,
Yes.
Mr. Weisbrod,
Yes.
Ms. Erickson.
Yes.
That was 12-0.
Thank you. Thank you. Lauren, thank you for joining. Thank you so much. Stay healthy and keep.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. That moves us to item number 5 on the agenda, the controller's report. Our controller's with us already. Peter Minarski is.
Hi, everyone. Peter Minarski, comptroller. We have a number of people come to work every day. Not everybody coming to work every day. We rotate. You can see Roland on the right side there. He's here. One of the things is right now we have 5 people in today. Roland, myself, Maureen Tracy, 1 accounts payable, and Natasha in treasury. We have to, if you could see my mask, we stay in separate rooms. We practice the distancing. And if not, I have to put the mask on. But it's very interesting. Start with Roland is one of the challenges doing the Zoom meetings is, as you all know, we have the decision day next Monday, and it's going to be extremely challenging. You know that Roland comes to the meeting with his iPad and his calculator, and he has to keep up with all the amendments that go through the process. We have accounts payable comes in on a rotational basis because we don't have the ability to accept the mail. The mail comes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It has to be opened up. We get checks, we get bills to pay. Although the workload has been reduced dramatically, we do have 1 or 2 people come in to do the accounts payable. Natasha rotates with Joan Lynch in the treasurer's office. We have people in the building. We have building permit revenues come in. Kim Spizzano, and town clerk, comes in a couple times a week with revenues from the town clerk. And there's a couple people in the public works, Bill McCormick and Amy, you just saw Amy Siebert and Dana. So we are working. There are duties that have to be performed where we have to come in. And it's really, really interesting that we've adapted through this Zoom methodology. Another example is I spent the last 3 or 4 hours with David Weisbrod and Andy Deuce, Mary Pepe, and Erica. We interviewed 3 people this morning for about an hour, 45 minutes to 60 minutes each for the internal auditor positions. It loses some of the value in not seeing people face to face, but it's the best that we can do under the certain conditions. You have a copy of my controller's report, and I'll open it up to any questions anyone has.
Ms. Crumick had her hand up first.
Actually, that was about something else, so you can ignore that.
Okay. Mr. Weisbrod?
Thank you very much, Pete. Any comment about the fire department study? It's been a little bit of radio silence, understandably, given the corona, but do you still see that being on track, on target, time-wise, and when do you see it coming before the committee that's the BET committee?
Okay, yes, that's actually noted in my controller's report. I've gotten, they've been billing us. They finished every single one of the interviews. And I spoke with Ben Brannion last week, late last week, Thursday, Friday, as I was writing this report. Right now, it looks like we're going to have some type of a report similar to the report, the profile that they sent out about a month or 2 that was shared with the BET. So to answer your question, I left a little leeway and put it in the May-June timeframe. So it looks like they're going to have something in the form of, I think it's going to be a 2-step process, a draft report, which we're going to have to conduct through Zoom and open it up, and then a final report. Hopefully, answer your question, yes, they're on schedule for the May-June reporting.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Moriarty, you're next, followed by Ms. Erickson.
Yes, I just wanted to follow up on the item in your controller's report about the refinancing of certain debt, that you're putting the documents in place to be able to take advantage in case there is an opportunity in the debt markets. I know that it had, when we were talking about other types of debt, there's a cost to preparing all those documents and being ready. Is the cost for these documents in that same $50,000 neighborhood?
Okay, for the refunding is the question, Leslie?
Yes.
They don't charge us if we don't go to market.
Okay.
The cost would, if you could unmute Roland, and I'll put Ms. Fosiliadis and Beth on the spot. We did, Robinson and Cole prepared a $25 million bonding refunding resolution. I believe it made its way through the law committee, and that's why I wanted Roland to respond.
Yes, it
It's
did.
in the package for the BET next Monday, correct, Roland?
Well, the plan is to attach it to the standing resolutions.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you'll have the general fund, the sewer resolutions.
Yep.
And this will go along with the package. It'll go to the RTM. I've been in contact on and off with Bill Lindsay, the financial advisor. The savings, the net present best practices are at least a 2% net present value savings. They come and they go, they come and they go. But we can't go to market until I have approval from the BET and the RTM. And it's a standing resolution that it's open for the next 24 months after approval. So if the savings are not here today or not here in May and they come in July, we can pull the trigger after the RTM approves it at the June 8th meeting.
Thank you.
Ms. Erickson, followed by Mr. Crumick.
Hi, Peter. I just
Hi,
wanted to ask
Laura.
about the volume of payables. I know you said the volume was down, but you're still collecting mail and town hall. And I'm wondering if you have a sense from, for instance, the Board of Ed. Are we keeping on pace with paying our bills? Is it just a backlog that's building up? Do you have any sense of what's happening vis-a-vis our general fund?
Okay, I don't know how to answer that properly because this came up with Mike Mason anecdotally. We're current in the finance department, but the reason I can't answer it is I don't know if they're queuing up out in the departments, whether it be at the Public Works is getting all their bills in and processed to us or the Board of Ed. So we're current in finance, but I think, again, Roland's there. When he sent the economic conditions report, he said that the expense, this is a question, Roland, we're trending below last year.
It's
So
a little bit,
Go ahead.
but it's we're pretty close to last year, but it's lower. I mean, just lower as a comparison to budget, but I think we're paying the bills, and
yeah,
I don't think we're too far behind.
yeah. But to answer Laura's question, I don't know if they're backing up out there in the field. The major ones we're going to pay, they're large, like the healthcare, et cetera. So we're current, but there'll always be a catch up in June. They can encumber the funds if we fall behind, and then we true it up with the encumbrances and pay them in July and August.
Okay, is that, Ms. Krumik was next.
Yeah, I had two questions. Hi, Pete.
Hi.
One of them is whether all the department heads have been given instructions to ensure that invoices coming through are getting to your offices as quickly as possible. Are they reminded that this is an important obligation at this moment where communications between departments may be slowed down?
We sent that email out to the department heads the week we closed down.
Okay, so you still don't know what they're doing, what's out there.
We process everything that we get in the mail.
Okay, my other question is, given where we are right now, is the money that was supposed to come through because of Sandy from the federal government, is the risk manager getting any sense of whether that's absolutely stopped in its tracks or whether it actually may be coming through in the interim?
No, as a matter of fact, there's
I know you referenced it in your
section.
report.
It's referenced. Yeah, we're still
I know.
waiting it. Yeah, no, we still expect it. There's some final documents. It's referenced in the controller's report.
Yeah, no, I know it is. That's why I'm just following up on it to see if there's anything more that needs to be done on our part, or whether we actually are in line to actually get the reimbursements from the federal government.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad you answered that question, because one of the things, as a segue, we had Megan Zanansky has taken the lead with the FEMA reimbursements. We had a FEMA briefing, 1:00 Friday afternoon. There was 69, 70 people on the briefing for up to 75% of eligible costs. Now, I don't know what eligible costs are, but going back over a month ago, and we followed up on this, we've set up special accounts in Munis to track all costs related to the COVID-19 shutdown. I'm sure Nathaniel Witherall's got more costs than the other departments, but we've got special Munis accounts. Now, the reason I brought that up is because I don't know if that's going to push the FEMA reimbursement out a few months, because the lead person, the FEMA Hartford person who is responsible for that briefing last Friday, is also the one that's working very closely with Megan Zanansky. So hopefully we get it before June 30th as far as the Superstorm Sandy reimbursement.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't show any more hands. Anyone else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the controller's report.
I'll make the motion. Accept the controller's report.
Motion to accept the controller's report. Seconded by
Andy.
Mr. Deuce. Discussion. Mr. Drake, would you? would you call the roll for voting on it?
I got on. Am I unmuted? Ms. Erickson?
Yes.
Mr. Weisbrod?
Yes.
Mr. Deuce?
Yes.
Mr. Raymer?
Yes.
Ms. Vasiliotis?
Karen Vasiliotis, yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Mason?
Yes.
Ms. Tarkington?
Yes.
Ms. Moriarty?
Yes.
Ms. Krumik?
Beth Krumik, yes.
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Ms. Cruiser?
Yes.
That was 12-0.
Mike, before you continue, could I just ask that people that aren't speaking mute themselves, because even though you don't think that there are background noise, there is background noise. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 6 on the agenda, Treasurer's Report dated March 2020. Can I get a motion? We accept that?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Tarkington. Discussion? I think we're going to see a change on this report going forward. Discussion? Mr. Drake, can I get a motion, vote on the Treasurer's Report?
Ms. Cruiser?
Yes.
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Ms. Krumik?
Beth Krumik abstained.
Ms. Moriarty?
Yes.
Ms. Tarkington?
Yes.
Mr. Mason?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms. Vasiliotis?
Karen Vasiliotis, yes.
Mr. Raymer?
Yes.
Mr. Deuce?
Yes.
Mr. Weisbrod?
Yes.
Ms. Erickson?
Yes.
That was 11-0-1.
Okay. Thank you. Item number 7, Standing Committee. I must admit, I checked the human resource boxes, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I'll call on the chair of our HR committee, Ms. Vasiliotis. Do you have anything that you wanted to make sure we got public this month?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. We met last week as the HR committee. Just a few things. As you know, our Commissioner of Human Services has delayed his retirement till August to assist with the coronavirus impact. So we thank him for staying on and caring about our town. With respect to the coronavirus, we did get a report from Mary Pepe. There are still a large number of people coming into town hall. Most are first responders. Most of our workers in town hall are working remotely where they can. There has been a spike in FMLA claims due to people being ill themselves or taking care of loved ones that are ill. We did have a spike in unemployment because of the BOE furloughs of the temporary or the substitute teachers. And for the seasonal workers, all P&R Parks and Recreation programs to May 31st have been canceled. There would be no impact to our unemployment because they haven't yet been hired. The temporary workers have not yet been hired. And with respect to parking services, they've been rerouted to the parks to make sure that people aren't entering the parks during the closure. So all in all, Town Hall is still working hard. As you know, both our controller and our own Roland Geiger are in Town Hall. Most departments are working on a rotated basis, either Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and rotating people through. Hopefully we'll be out of this pretty soon.
Thank you very much. Moving into our liaison report, I'd like to, I was notified by our liaisons for Nathaniel Witherell that Nathaniel Witherell, Board Chair, Mr. Simon, would have some updates for us. So you've seen, I've moved him over to be a panelist, and I will, I think he's got some updates for us on Nathaniel Witherell this month. So I will call on Mr. Simon. He is unmuted and he's with us for his first virtual meeting with the BET.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Okay. Yes.
I can see. Okay. So I'd like to spend a few minutes giving you an overview and what's happening in Nathaniel Witherall, and then take any questions you might have after that. Nathaniel Witherall, I'll give you the update today, has a census of 144 patients. This is down. The normal census is 190, so it's down 46 people. This is because we have stopped taking any new admissions since the middle of March. And that mostly reflects short-term people leaving. So I would say we have 1 or 2 short-term people left in the building, and we have approximately 142 long-term patients, which in itself is probably good news. We currently have 19 patients. We currently have 21 patients that testing positive for COVID-19 and 3 whose results are pending. This is down from 25 patients. 4 patients have moved from the isolation area back to the tower building as they're getting, as they're healing and getting cured. When they go back to their rooms, they're still being placed in a private room and receiving isolation and treatment for 14 days to make sure they're not contagious. And there's a whole procedure on how to do this, although no one is quite sure yet how to make sure people are COVID-free. We've had 6 deaths since this has started, 5 COVID and 1 unconfirmed. But for Nathaniel Witherall in general, we have 60 or 65 deaths a year just due to the age of our population. So this isn't completely outside the normal numbers. And some of the people that have died have been over 100 years old. Not to minimize their loss, but it's not extraordinary. And they've been getting good care. I'd like to I have 6 sections to my report. Do you want me to stop at each section or go through all 6? I can't hear you.
Please continue.
All right. For personnel issues, John Mastronardi, our executive director, has been hired and is going to start on 1 week from today on April 27th. And there's no one looking forward to his starting. No one looking more forward to his starting than me. I sent a notice to HGG that we are terminating their contract at the end of April. And Joanne Kotulski, who is the acting director, has agreed to stay on as essentially a director of nursing consultant through the end of June. I'm hoping to hire a director of nursing by then. HGG would like to continue on as a consultant to us after May 1st. I said I would have to talk to John about that. But from my point of view, the HGG work is COVID-19 related. Almost all of the updates they gave Joanne were COVID-19 related. Almost none of them dealt with the operations of Witherall. So to the extent that 75% of it is reimbursed by FEMA, or 70% is reimbursed by FEMA, it's probably a very good deal. The downside is that we're getting overwhelmed by the number of emails and directives from the state and from the federal government, and just having another source of input on COVID-19 may not be helpful. But I'm going to let John make that decision, and I told HGG I would get back to them. I have to take one moment and thank the BET in general. I think without HGG being there and your support and your pushing me to do this, it would have been a complete disaster at Witherall. They've been wonderful in terms of who they found. They provided a lot of support for us. They helped us get through an extremely difficult 4-month period that we wouldn't have made it ourselves. And with that, with the HGG contract, and I can't say enough good things about them, we have come through this very nicely. And in particular, they've given Joanne Kotulski through a daily 1-hour phone call, a lot of support, a lot of guidance of what to do. That's been extremely helpful. As you referenced earlier, I received the same email from Barbara Hines about the freezing of the vacancies and the reduction of overtime. We have, with or all, many vacancies to fill. Just to remind everybody, we don't have a director of nursing. We don't have a director of finance. I have an assistant director of nursing leaving. I have other nurses leaving who are just retiring over the normal course of actions. And I have a business service coordinator for the business office, which is down to really 2 people. And so I'm trying to schedule a time to talk to Ben Branyan, get in line with the other supplicants, and ask to have some consideration that I can then, that they'll still approve the people we've been looking for. Because we need to have a financial person. I need to have a director of nursing, and that's very important. But I've heard nothing. Many of the people, with or all, we've had 11 employees who have tested positive and 13 who have not come into work. So we've had a lot of people out. I'm hoping that they will either follow the guidelines for when you can come back to work, or else we're going to take grievance procedures against them, because people just have to show up in an essential place like Witherall. It's not a job you can do from home. But this won't happen until May.
Hey, Larry, this is Andy Deuce, BET. Are the 13 in addition to the 11, or is there overlap?
They're unique.
Okay.
All right. Next topic is reimbursements. So I'm not positive what everybody reads. So the governor increased our Medicaid reimbursement by 15%. We were getting, for Medicaid, we were getting $281 a day, $286 a day. So we're getting $43 a day more. And if you have 120 Medicaid patients and they made it back to March 1st, that would be another $628,000 that we would be receiving in reimbursement. People that are COVID-19 and in isolation and receiving treatment are and have Medicare are eligible for Medicare billing. That would be $600 and some a day, which is all good. And then if FEMA pays 70% of the COVID costs, that could be several $100,000 for us. Although I have a phone call scheduled with Megan after this, just to discuss what should be the methodology by which we include costs under this FEMA contract or the FEMA reimbursement. For us, it's not quite so straightforward, because I worry about, is it just people on a certain unit? Do I get to include people being working double time and overtime because a lot of employees have been affected by COVID-19? So I'm going to try and have a robust discussion with her and then recode the existing payroll and costs into the FEMA accounts. Our protective equipment, personal protective equipment, PPE, most of it has been provided free by either the state or other agencies. People have been extremely generous in donating equipment and helping us. We bought gowns, but those will be reimbursed also by FEMA. It's going to take a little while to sort through all the money that's really being thrown to nursing homes. And thrown is not a bad word. You saw on the P&L that we have under revenues, Medicare paid to every nursing home 6% of their prior year's Medicare reimbursement. That was $428,000 for us. The state sent us a check for $90,000. I think that may be an advance on the Medicaid money that they've just increased. But everybody, the federal government and the state government, is making a big effort to make sure that nursing homes have enough money to operate. It's just going to take a little while to sort out the billing and some of the issues and getting it all reconciled, because you can bill more money for positive COVID-19 patients that you can't bill to Medicare. You get $400 a day. So we need to work through that. And again, having a financial officer would be helpful. And I'm not sure when that's going to happen. The next topic is expenses. I'm pretty confident our expenses will not exceed our budget due to several reasons. We have fewer people working. We have lower food costs. We have lower therapy costs because we're not providing physical therapy. We have higher overtime, however. But in general, we're trending below budget. The last I looked, we're several $100,000 below budget, although we will probably have to come to the BET in June to move money from one major object code to another. I'll comment briefly about what Peter Minarski said about invoice processing. For us, invoice processing is definitely slower for two reasons in general. Getting invoices approved becomes tedious. You know, you need more than one signature in general, and people aren't working on site, and moving paper around to get multiple signatures is difficult. I have one invoice sitting here that they want the original, so I have to drive over to town hall, call somebody, they're going to come to the door, and I have to give them the original invoice. But they paid it. But those are examples. And I think there's going to be a delay in processing invoices. Now, the question is how much, and I can't answer that exactly, but I would like to know myself. And the next area is the state and the federal government. They are, the state is CMS. First of all, CMS, the Center for the Federal Government, which runs Medicare and Medicaid, is imposing reporting requirements. The state's coming to every nursing home in the state to survey it to make sure your infection control procedures are correct. They were saying they're going to do this in the next 7 days, starting today. I think we've done a very good job. I'm going to find out if we've done a good job or not. But they've now made more requirements about making sure that you notify families, you notify participants. This is a lot of reaction to what's gone on more in other nursing homes. But it's essentially you get 2 daily bulletins telling you what you have to do. That's one of them, which is you now have to keep all family members up to date with what's happening, how many COVID positive patients, if you have new outbreaks, or so forth. For us, we haven't had any change in COVID positive patients in several days, which is good. And the number of COVID positive patients will continue to decrease. And lastly, we have filed our Medicare and Medicaid cost reports. The Medicaid went in today. The Medicare went in at the end of March, and that's also very good. Now, I haven't gone through in detail the P&L, but I thought I would pause here to answer any questions, if that's all right.
If members would just raise their hands normally, with their, Ms. Moriarty, you're first.
I just wanted to follow up on one number you stated, though I recognize you said a lot of things are in flux, but you talked about the Medicaid increase of $43 a day would generate $628,000. Is that from March 1st to the end of June?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other members? Any questions? Mr. Simon, thank you.
All right.
This is quite an update. Sounds like some positives, and we're still dealing in a tough situation. So
I think we should be all happy that We have stayed out of the headlines. We have provided a valuable service to our seniors. The most difficult part for the residents is, and their family, is that they cannot see their children or their loved ones, and their separation has not helped their mental health. But we are trying to do FaceTime with people. We schedule it with, different people call up, and we're doing individual recreation therapy, and we're doing the best we can to cope under what I say are very difficult circumstances.
Well, on behalf of the BET, we appreciate everything your board and team is doing up there. I'm sorry, I have Ms. Erickson, followed by Mr. Deuce, followed by Ms.
Mike, I can't raise my hand. Can I just ask a quick question first?
Okay.
I'm sorry. I had my hand up. You didn't see me. Larry, just a quick question. How are you communicating with the families? Are you sending out email blasts? Are you calling them up? What's the mechanism?
Well, I think we call them. The social workers are on the phone all day long with the families, trying to bring them any updates or information. I just got an email saying we're going to put in a call messenger system, which will do mass group calling to families with any of the required updates.
They're calling every couple of days. I can tell you that as someone with a family member there.
Raise your hand, please. Raise your hand, please, if you want to say something.
Sorry.
Ms. Erickson.
Yes. Hi, Larry. Thank you for all you're doing, and to all the staff at Nathaniel Witherell. It's an extremely challenging time. Just a quick question on the numbers. So there's a line item, COVID-19 stimulus for $515,000. So I assume that the increase to the Medicaid, which is the 628, is included up above. So this 515 is reimbursement, or can you just explain or characterize what this is?
515 is the 428 or the 425 that Medicare sent to every nursing home just to help you get through, which was the 6% of last year's Medicare reimbursement. It was like a gift. I would describe it exactly as a gift, but it was well received. And $90,000 was a check that just showed up from the state with maybe a letter of explanation to come, or maybe not. But as I learned when I was on the BET, never ask where the money comes from.
Thank you.
Deuce, followed by Ms. Hess.
And Larry, again, I'll echo Laura and Mike's comments. What you've done is just remarkable, not just considering that you've had your senior layer of management absent during this recent month or several months, but also given the COVID-19 crisis. So you have our deep congratulations. I just, for all our BET colleagues, I think Beth and I circulated to everyone the page from Roland earlier this past week on the estimate for the full current year, and as you all can see, we're about 500,000 behind in revenues, and about 2.5 million behind revenues, and about 500,000 ahead on expenses. So it is what it is, but we'll have to deal with it. So again, Larry, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Hess, followed by Ms. Cruiser.
Larry, I guess I'll join in. Thank you. I can't imagine what you and the staff and the team are dealing with in the middle of this crisis, and not having a full team to do that. I understand the challenges with that. I wanted to ask more about, I worry about like some of the patients, and you talked about not being able to see their families. I know you get guidance, but do you have any sense about when you can start allowing people to come into the building to see their loved ones, even on a limited basis? Or are we still so far out from that you just don't have a sense?
There was an article on that, another email on that today, which said that will probably be during phase 3, which will probably be in June. That's what the article said. I don't think it's going to happen soon. Everybody is very concerned about reinfecting people. And given that nursing patients are the most vulnerable, I don't see this happening before June.
Thank you.
Ms. Cruiser, followed by Ms. Crumick.
Hi, Larry. Just a quick question, just going back to some of the employers that you noted were not able to come to work. Do you have some details on what type of employers? Are these full-time nurses, or are these the CNAs? Are they part-time?
They're both. And they're people that don't feel comfortable coming to work. And then there are people that have tested positive. But there are standards that the town has published that says if once you're no longer asymptomatic, there's a time period after which you need to come to work. If you still don't come to work, those are the ones we're going to take disciplinary action against. Because I have people working 70 hours every 2 weeks of overtime. You can only do that for a little while before you're exhausted and you start making bad decisions. So
Right.
people either have to feel that they have an obligation to work, or they should find another place to work, I think. But that will be dealt with more within the grievance structure.
Right. Thank you.
Ms. Crumick?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing. My sense, as many of you may know, I have a mother-in-law that is there. And we are getting calls every couple of days from the staff. And if something specific to her is needed, or she wants to communicate with us, they have been wonderful about reaching out to us. I'd like to ask Larry, on behalf of the BET, to thank Joanne, because my sense is that we have a team of nurses and CNAs. Those who are there are so respectful of the patients. They are being guided well by Joanne as to how to treat them and what is absolutely necessary for protocol. And it's easy to forget that each one of them is an individual. Each patient there is an individual. And we as a family do feel connected. It's not easy. We'd love to be able to walk in the front door, but we also recognize that she's being protected well from our standpoint. And for that, I thank Joanne, I thank the whole team. And Larry, you have been extraordinary. Thanks.
Thank you. I see no other further hands. Again, one more thanks to Mr. Simon. Keep everybody healthy. Keep going on. We're a unique municipality being in this business and having to deal with this, but I'm sure we're doing the best we can do.
We are.
Thank you. Thank you again for joining us today.
No, thank you for your support.
No, we're there. We're all there.
All right.
Continuing on still under liaison report, I'd like to call on Mr. Drake, and I'm not sure if it's Mr. Weisbrod, for this CD block grant. I believe we have an update. Unmute yourself.
Bill, do you want to do it, or I can do it as well? What would you prefer?
I can do it because Tyler gave me all the information, but I'm happy to.
Go ahead.
Let me do this, and then David, add whatever you want, okay?
Go right ahead. Go ahead.
For the program year 20, this is really, I thank Tyler Fairbairn for his quick response on these topics today. For the program year 2020 in the CDBG, we received 40 applications totaling $2,120,096. We have to allocate to these activities, we have $982,780. We also received, the town also received an additional amount in CDBG coronavirus funding through the CARES Act. That amount is an additional $486,978. This is to be used specifically for, quote, preventing, preparing for, and responding to the COVID-19 outbreak. We received, for this amount of money, this extra $487,000, we received 21 applications totaling a little over $1.2 million. And the town has decided to include this additional funding in the same calendar and the same process as the typical larger batch. because that'll get the money through BET approval and RTM approval and into the community as fast as possible. So they're planning to continue to move forward with virtual meetings, Zoom meetings on the 22nd in 2 days in the evening, and on the 29th with the first selectman. The meeting 2 days from now is with the committee that David and I are on, the whole community development committee, which has about 20, 30 members. So we expect to submit the CDBG plan for consideration at the May 18th BET meeting and then the June 8th RTM meeting, which will keep it on a good schedule. That's my update, and David, happy if you want to contribute.
I think is the second meeting on the 27th. The final decision meeting is on the 27th, I think. Am I wrong?
I think I couldn't say right or wrong. I don't have it on my calendar, but so you could be right, David. I'm sorry, I don't know. We'll get the answers, you and me, and
But other than that, everything you said is exactly what I would have said, Bill. So we're there.
Actually, what I have it on, I have the meeting on the calendar for the 29th of April. But anyway, you and I, we'll figure that out.
Yeah, if you could just email the BET and Roland and Peter so we make sure. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Moving down, item 8 is complete. Nothing under item 9. That brings us to, I put this on there, obviously, in building up the agenda, a tipping fee resolution. I was asked if we needed a resolution. We do not. Quick update, the RTM has this tonight. There's talk of, that we've heard, sunsetting, suspending the rules, approve it tonight or let it go for a second read. There's a group out there wanting to add another item to the agenda. Obviously, there's lots of discussions about the numbers. I can't count how many different RTM members I've talked to. And I've said, I explained our deliberations through our meetings and the conversations we had, one versus the other. And I think there's going to be a question, the open question to the BET on this item is, what are you going to do when you recommend the budget to us on the 27th? And my answer is, I can tell you what I think we should do, but I can't tell you what the other 11 BET members want to do. I think that's one of our discussions we'll have. So I think that's where it goes. It was discussed at every district meeting. It was discussed at least 4 committee meetings. Obviously, if I forget to thank everybody for all their commitment and all those evenings on those meetings later, please forgive me, but I really appreciate everybody's commitment. So that's where I see the resolution on the tipping fee. I think the first selectman is being as clear now as possible that, we want to do something now, and later on somebody could revise it. But for right now, I think everybody's concerned on a budgetary basis. The chair of the finance committee has been trying to say to the RTM, we need to make the BET's life a little bit clearer when they make their decision and go from there. I don't, again, I think we've attended a lot of meetings on this, and I just put it on our agenda today so everybody's listening tonight, and we get ready for our workshop. I'm sure we're going to talk about it, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it on decision day. So I have nothing else on this. Anybody raise your hand? I'm more than welcome to. Wow. Okay, moving on. Item number 11, new business. Joining us for her first virtual, I think it's our first virtual meeting with us, is our tax collector, Heather Smeriglio. Again, another item for tonight, and I'd like to, can we get Heather live here?
You see me?
No, I don't see you yet. You have to turn your video on.
I did. I clicked the yes button and it didn't work.
She does have her video on. It notes, but for some reason it's not working. So
let me stop video and start it again. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
That's something for our IT people to work on with her, because she does have also the.
Yep,
RTM
it says
plan.
start my video, which I'm clicking. And then,
You're about to have it because we just saw your name pop up. Is your camera blocked?
let's see.
If you're on an iPad, are you on the front camera or the back camera?
No, I'm at my desk in the town hall. And nothing's happening. It just says your meeting should start in a few seconds.
Okay.
It's not doing anything. Let's see if I can click that. I don't know. Let's try something else.
Please stay tuned. We're having technical difficulties at this time. We'll be right back with you.
Okay, so I'm still not getting my video here.
Okay, so we're going to proceed then.
Okay.
We're looking for, obviously, an update on the governor's executive order 7S, 7W.
Okay.
And we leave it to you.
Okay, well, first of all, I wanted to just do a brief overview of the tax collector's office, what's been going on. We get our mail in Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So what I've been doing is alternating the staff coming in, which has been great. It's been working out really well. So all the monies that have been coming in, whatever comes in on that day are deposited that day. The only difference is right now, the TD Bank on Greenwich Avenue is closed where we usually make the deposit. So I've been taking it up to the Stanford branch that has a drive up. So we are getting our monies in every day that the checks come in. They're being deposited the same day, which is working out great. A couple of numbers I just wanted to mention was that we had a delinquent mailing go out in March, and just on the real estate side alone in delinquent income that came in is about 2.6 million. So I was very encouraged with that number. We also mailed out our sewer bills. About 1.3 million went out in bills. And so far to date, we've got in about 500,000. I'm hoping to see more of that. Usually people wait to the last week to pay. So hoping that we see a bigger chunk towards the end of the week. So those are just some figures for you, what's been going on in the office. And then as far as the Executive Order 7S, as most of you already know, Governor Lamont issued the Order 7S, which is the suspension and the modification of tax collection and the collection efforts. The state established two programs, the deferment program and the low interest rate program. And the RTM is set to vote on that this evening. I recommended the deferment program, which would push out the due dates for the sewers. Instead of being the May 1st deadline, would be July 1st. And then for our first collection of July 1st, that would be pushed out to October 1st. And so it's in their hands for tonight. And I just wanted to let you know that, we're doing our very best here in the tax collector's office and open it up to any questions you might have.
Normal fashion, I'll be looking for hands to go up. Ms. Moriarty, I see your hand first, followed by Ms. Erickson.
Yeah, my question is going to be addressed to the controller. And because we've all read the documentation supplied, and I appreciate the work that both the tax collector and the controller have done in this to provide the background information to the RTM members. It's not an easy decision. It's coming on very quickly. Towns don't really have a lot of time to evaluate the impact. The data that's provided from the controller indicates that we can offer the tax deferment to all taxpayers, and we would be able to meet our cash needs till that money arrives on October 1st. In a discussion at the budget committee that I raised is in looking at the numbers, while we're not exhausting all of our options, then we won't have a guarantee clearly that that money will arrive the same way it did last year on October 1st. Specifically, anybody impacted by the virus that doesn't have the cash available on July 1st, or August 1st when it's typically due, their situation may not change by October 1st. So I'm wondering what alternatives or what mechanisms the town can put in place to have a backup cash availability in case we need it. We had talked about our TANs, but also a potential line of credit. And I'm wondering if you can update us on the latest with the alternatives available.
Is this to me, Leslie?
Yes, it's to you.
Okay. I went through it 3 or 4 times. I had Natasha look at it to see if I missed anything. We don't expect to run out of money in under any scenario. However, backup plans is, and I had a email conversation with Joseph Pellegrino and Michael Wasik. In June, we'll have a couple months. We could look at the cash flows again. One backup plan is we can defer the pension and the OPEB contribution, $30 million for up to 8 to 10 weeks. And I would propose that as a backup at the June retirement board meeting. Again, as I said, both Natasha and I looked at it independently, and we don't see any shortfall. We looked at the numbers. I contacted one of Heather's staff members, Brendan McDonough, and we looked at the people that are exempt, which would be the escrowed accounts. In our preliminary, Heather and I, our preliminary estimates were that 50 million people would be exempt. Brendan weighed in last week, and he said the potential could be from 50 to 75 million. So we're looking at another maybe 10 to 15 million, being conservative in the middle ground. So that's about $45 million of money we probably don't even need. As far as TANs, I only know there's only 2 or 3 towns that take that route. One is Bridgeport, for example, who's done TANs the last 3 years in a row. They do that because they have cash management, cash flow problems. So it has nothing to do with COVID-19. In the article in the Greenwich Times this morning, Stratford is looking at a $50 million TAN. That's because they have cash flow problems. We don't anticipate having cash flow problems, so we're not looking at that. As a follow-up with Bill Lindsay, he questions the legality of opening up a line of credit with the banks. So we're not using that as an alternative. So I think basically that's where we are with the cash flows. Through another alternative is we could defer some of the September payments into October as far as the capital projects that are funded by the mill rate and other large bills. We could defer them a couple weeks. One of the payrolls falls at October 2nd, and we funded September 30th. We should have, the money should be flowing through pretty heavily at the end of September, like it does at the end of July and through August 3rd. So that's basically where we are with the cash flow issues.
I raised a question because whether we should have an insurance policy. So if we look at, and I understand that we're comfortable, we feel pretty comfortable getting through the October 1 period, and that assumes that people then do pay in the same fashion they did last year, where we get the majority of payers meeting the deadline. But if for some reason something else occurs and we don't get that same behavior where people continue to delay after October 1, even though they're incurring interest, my question is, how quickly does it take to get a TAN in place? Again, I'm looking at an insurance policy. Don't anticipate we need it, but I think it's incumbent upon this board to make sure we have the options available to us ready to go if necessary. My understanding is the TAN documentation would need to be prepared and it has to be approved by the BET and the RTM. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess if necessary, we would know in time that we might be able to get it on a September call, which would then give us money in October if necessary. Is that?
As far as the timing, yes, if you went that route, what I would envision, it might be far-fetched and it might not be, is if the governor, he's got these executive orders 7S-7W, the amendment to 7S. If he decides to do this again in January, it would be throwing the January or the February 1st payments out to April. That could be a bigger problem than the one that's presented in September. However, I've again spoke to Robson and Cole and Bill Lindsay, and we could address that with the normal financing in the month of January, if in fact that occurs. But I don't see any issues after we get, even if there's the shortcomings with the revenues that come at the end of September and beginning of October, we should have more than enough cash. What I forgot to mention as a backup, we have in my document to the RTM is we have a lot of cash, maybe as much as $70 million in the other funds that we could draw upon. You could look at your treasurer's report that's in the document, the package today, and we've got like almost $250 million. And if you subtract out the OPEB, which is not touchable as far as the cash, we're in great shape as far as a cash short fund fall in November, December. What you might not see is people, because there's not the advantage of paying your taxes early in December, you might not see that anymore. But I think we're in good shape all the way through next fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Ms. Moriarty, we finished?
Yes, I just said thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Ms. Erickson, followed by Mr. Deuce.
So I'll reverse my questions. I have two questions. Pete, when you look at the collection, and I guess this is a question really for Pete and Heather, when you look at our experience, say in 2008, when we last had a significant event, was our collection history impacted anyway? I know historically we've had a very high collection rate, but should we be looking at our assumption going forward for the next fiscal year?
The problem with people not paying is their problem is they're paying 18%. They have an incentive to pay on time. If they don't, we're going to collect it at some point, whether it's we put liens on later in the year. Heather can address that, and we're going to get all the taxes. I sent out a document. It was the PowerPoint presentations I prepared a number of years ago. Leslie Moriarty, if you could help me, I sent it. I don't believe we were impacted negatively. I don't have it in front of me. That's why I'm hesitating. I don't believe we were impacted that much as far as tax collections back in 8-9.
Maybe it's something we could just look at, and you can
Yes,
let us
I will.
Have any adjustments. And then Heather, a question for you that came up at the district meeting I attended. People were asking about the timing of the tax bills. Our mill rate meeting is the 15th. Are you still planning to send out the bills as you would normally on July 1?
Yes, I already checked with our processor as to the drop dead date of when we would need to have the mill rate to them in order to get the bills out by July 1, and it was June 15th.
So we're not going to have that number for you till the next day.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. I told them, well, they wanted to, I looked at June 15th. It's a Sunday, correct? So
it's a Monday.
It's a Monday.
Fine. Is it then June 15th is fine? You're going to meet June 15th or June 16th? I'm sorry.
The 15th, the Monday.
Okay, so we would need to have it to them by June 15th. So I'll double check that.
Okay, that would be great. And you still would only be doing one mailing. You would not send a reminder mailing for those who elected to defer.
If the RTM is going to vote to do the deferment program, we're just going to do the one mailing July 1.
Thank you.
I have a question, Michael.
Thank you.
I'm going to, Peter Minarski, please.
No, just so it's fresh, Laura's question through you to Heather. Heather, because are we going to have separate mailings for the exempt and the non-exempt people? One having a due date of July 1st and one having a due date of October 1st? Is it possible to commingle them two into one mailing?
They're all gonna be in the one mailing on July 1.
But there'll be two tax billings, correct?
If they go with the deferment program, it's going to be to all taxpayers.
That wasn't the question. You have two due dates you're working with, July 1st and October 1st. If $60 million is due July 1st, how are you going to note that on the tax bills for the people that are due October 1st?
When the tax bills go out, they're being mailed July 1, but if the RTM votes for the deferment program, the due date will be, the drop dead date is going to be October 1st. So there's only going to be the one mailing.
Heather, can I just jump in? Will there be an explanation on the tax bill saying that if you pay through your bank, it's still due on the regular date? However, if you pay in person, what would that notice look like is the question.
Well, I'm working with QDS right now, and we are leaning towards doing an insert. So that would be like an explanation to the people that are being escrowed, that their monies are going to be taken out the normal timing. And then that would, cover that for them.
Okay.
Plus,
I mean, I think that it would be
thinking this through, Karen.
Yep.
Actually, the escrowed people, and I'm one of them because my taxes are escrowed, they don't get a bill.
No, I know that. But the thing is that the bank needs to have some sort of instruction as well, saying that, you still need to pay the taxes on time. I'm sure that, most of these banks will probably know that, but just to be on the safe side, when they are sent the bill, however that bill gets to them, they should have some sort of instruction. And similarly, when the people get, who pay their taxes just in person, they should have some sort of instructions, either an insert or something saying that, you can pay your taxes whenever you want, but it's really not due until October 1st.
Well, QDS is aware of everything, and we're working very closely with them to make sure that everything is handled in the correct fashion.
Just for the BET, QDS quality data system has almost 100% of the Connecticut municipalities. So they're going to be super experts in this because they're going to be dealing with the billing system for like 150 to 160 municipalities. So I trust QDS getting this right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Deuce.
There's a question for Pete, following up on Leslie Moriarty's comment about tax anticipation. Forgive me, I should know this, but do we have a line of credit as a town?
No.
And would it be easy to set one up just as an alternative to doing the notes if we had to go down that path?
Bill Lindsay opined on that last week. It's his understanding they're not legal in the state of Connecticut.
For municipalities? Really?
Your alternative is a tax anticipation note.
Okay.
That's his interpretation. Because he's had some clients actually ask that question.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Kremick? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had a question for Heather. I'm just wondering, I'm going back to what Karen was discussing, which is what are the communications to taxpayers when they get their taxes that you're now sending out, you are sending out in July, they won't be due until later. Is it going to be communications from the town of Greenwich, or is it going to be something that the data system is going to send out for all those municipalities that they represent? I ask that because I think there are votes being taken at the RTM, and we're certainly reviewing it as well. And I would think that we'd want to ensure that our taxpayers know we're taking into consideration the COVID 19,
Mhm.
and that as a result, there is an extension of their time to pay. And I'm just wondering if we as a town direct what goes into that envelope so that it's crystal clear
Mhm.
what's happening and when it's due and
Right.
who agreed to the extension.
Absolutely, Beth. I'm going to be working with QDS, and what happens is they actually produce the bill, but I see that bill first. I have to actually approve it. So it will be on the bill. We'll actually have it in the Greenwich Time. It'll be posted on our website, and hopefully that will be enough to suffice that people will know this is going to be happening. I've had several taxpayers call the office. I put them on a list to be called tomorrow morning. So we are making sure that everyone will know about the COVID-19. We're going to cover as many bases as we can to make sure that it's out there.
And another thing that was discussed just for the BET was putting it in First Selectman Camillo's community blast as well, to try to get it to the most people as possible.
Okay,
Great idea.
thank you. Ms. Hess, followed by Ms. Cruiser.
Sorry, I had to unmute. So I want to go back to the point about the TAN. It seems to me, Pete, that you're reasonably confident that for this kind of upcoming deferment, if it actually gets approved by the RTM, that we have the cash flow. It would seem to me that if we were to consider a TAN, it might almost be viewed potentially negative by the rating agencies. It sounds like the two examples that you raised both were having cash flow issues. And if we were to put in an insurance policy now when we feel comfortable, might it send a signal that we think we have cash flow problems when we don't? And, I think I liked what you said, that if this thing, maybe another round of it gets deferred, we need to stay on top of maybe potentially consider it then. But it seems to me it would not be prudent to consider it now if we're pretty confident. And I'm going to defer to you on that. It doesn't seem like something we should be doing at this moment. I do have one other question too after that.
I wouldn't want to have Robinson prepare a bond resolution if the BET is not going to vote for it. So it's really your question, the 12 of you have an appetite for passing a resolution that may never be used, may or may not. So it's really, you have to, plural, have to answer that question. I can't unilaterally go out and draft a bond resolution unless.
No, I understand that you can't draft the resolution. It seems like we don't really need it now, and that we need to monitor the situation at the state level and see whether or not there's a follow-up deferment, and whether then, like to your point, do we need to consider it for the January bill? But it sounds like now we have more than adequate cash flow, and you're comfortable that we can meet our cash flow needs.
Yes.
Okay. My other question is really more, so even though there's this deferment, the bill is technically still due July. It's still due at the regular date. It's just that you have this sort of option to not pay it, right? So when you put this notice in the mail, there may be people that still want to pay their bill on time, even though there's this option to pay it later, tax-free, again, presuming that this gets approved by the RTM. Is that true? I just want to be clear. It's still due. It's just a deferment that's an option.
Correct. The due date is moved out, but you can always pay it in July or August. There's no penalty doing that. It's just that for the people that need more time, it won't be late until after October 1.
Okay, I do think that it's important to make sure people understand that it's not going to be late for a longer period of time. But I just want people to understand that it's still, you could still pay your bill on time. I would hope that.
Right.
Okay.
You could actually prepay your bill. We have every year advance payments. There was one year about 5, 6, 7 years ago where we got over $35 million in prepayments in June that were due July 1st.
Yeah, it's true.
Ms. Cruiser.
Yes, I'm actually going to take a slightly different approach to the comment that was just made. So I'm thinking through the fact that if we make our mill rate decision on June 15th and the letters go out on July 1st, I think there are some people who already by then, if they aren't aware of this this change, will start thinking about how they're going to, liquidate potentially in a down market in order to be paying, and might be feeling some stress. I wondered if we wouldn't consider, even if it was just a postcard, where again we can describe what Deborah was just saying, that if you can play, please do, but something that would get out there after the RTM's vote that would give some people some peace of mind. I would gather that a mailing such as that would exclude the escrow accounts would not be that expensive, and would go a long way into giving some of the people who might be, have the most benefit from this, some peace of mind immediately.
We can definitely consider that. I think the website gets a lot of traffic, so I think that's going to be our number one way of communicating it to people. And then, the newspapers, but we can definitely consider doing a mailing, a separate little postcard.
I would just caution that you need manpower, if you will, or women power to do that. And with the limited staff, that could be an issue, but certainly, Heather, you could look into it.
Okay.
I have my hand up and I don't want to raise my hand. So I haven't chimed in on this whole subject too much. I sent you back earlier in the week sort of all the documents from 2012, and you can look in there on what we thought we were going to collect on taxes during that time frame, and we did not modify that. You'll see the estimated collection rate or the uncollected numbers were the same. The 15th, as far as setting the mill rate, obviously the RTM is scheduled for the 8th. They do have they may run to the 9th. We really don't know for their decision day. We have other meetings in there. We certainly could attach a special meeting to get Heather a couple days for just setting of the mill rate. We have that option that we can do. And there's something else that really is more important that I think this town really needs to recognize. In 2008, it wasn't quite as bad as this, and we didn't have tax deferments. But in 2008, we didn't have a fund balance at all. And it was the controller, Peter Minarski, who called Larry Simon and I into the office back then to say, look, the credit rating agencies are looking for the town to have a policy on fund balance and a fund balance. And I don't remember what the parameters were, 3 to 6% of operating, 5 to 10 of operating. And we didn't have that back then. That made different pressures then than today. So I just think it's all important to, as we listen to Peter now, telling us that we should be in good shape, we're going to hit other communities differently. He's researching it, and I will follow that advice. But I just think that the people in the town don't realize that our fund balance, and right now we're at about 11.3% of operating, and we know we have decision day coming, but I just think that that's a critical fact in our town's history, that we're sitting here with a fund balance now within a policy. And I think that's very important. I want to make sure everybody really understands that, because I think that's very important. Further, okay. Heather, thank you for your help. And I know you have a pretty busy night ahead of you with the RT.
Yes.
So again, unless anybody else has anything, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Mason. Thank you, BET members.
This is what a year to start as tax collector with this happening.
Can you believe it? Oh boy.
Okay, moving on. If I may, we're still in new business. And I know that Ken Borsick is on the other side, and I'm actually counting on him for a little help with I'd like to switch to our public hearing, which is tomorrow night at 7:30. And you notice I put a general discussion. Right now, we have attendees in the audience. If you click on your attendees, so everybody understands, this is what I believe, this screen that we're looking at now is what the public is going to see. We somewhere in the opening speech or the closing, I will recognize, I think this morning Elaine said that we had 150 or just shy of 150 cards that came in. Those cards will become part of our permanent record of our meeting minutes. I'll recognize the number. I'm not going to recognize them. They get downloaded, and Jenny is working with Elaine. They get downloaded in an Excel sheet. They'll be attached to our minutes. They'll be posted in within 7 days. So my vision on and I'm always open for suggestions. You know, we've had a transition team that's been working on this electronic conversion. Is you will be a panelist. We usually don't participate in the public hearings other than maybe an opening statement and a closing statement. And sort of the plan is that the attendees, we will work on the attendee screen, and as they put their hand up, now it's hard with phone calls, very challenging for people who are calling in. I'm not exactly sure how that goes, but as people put their hand up, and I'm going to ask if Miss Oberlander is out there, one of our ex officio members, if she would put her hand up, if she's okay. So what's happening now is just a little bit of an experiment for the public hearing. We're going to have three things going on. We're going to have somebody calling names and who's on deck, and we'll go by the order of the hands. And what we'll do is we'll just click on that. Welcome, select. Ms. Oberlander, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
So obviously,
hopefully my video is not up.
No, you will not have video. It will not work that way. So what's going to happen is Craig Jones and Jenny are working on their screens to have sort of the operating rules of the public hearing. And I'm going to ask you in a minute for some input. So Ms. Oberlander right now would be welcome to our public hearing. You know, she'll have whatever our rules we adopt as a BET, 3 minutes to speak. She'll speak. And then what we'll do is we'll just mute her and go to the next speaker. Is everybody getting the visual on this?
Mike, can I just suggest something different? When a person raises their hand, if you can unmute them first before you bring them over and ask them to say their name and confirm who they are, because if they are a bomber, they will start immediately into their rants and whatever. And that way we can mute them quickly and get rid of them. This is before you bring them over as a panelist.
I am not bringing speakers over as panelists.
Well, but you did with.
I did not.
Oh,
all I did was allow Ms. Oberlander to speak.
I'm sorry. I saw her on the screen, so I just thought that she was over as a panelist.
So that's what we're going to see. We're going to see Ms. Oberlander. And we're going to have rules ahead of time. She's going to come over. Jill Oberlander, Board of Selectmen, I'd like to talk about X. And when Ms. Oberlander's done, not to cut you off there, Jill, but what we do then is we go and we mute her and we click on the next speaker and we lower her hand.
Mike, this is Jenny. I just need to interject. You also have to disallow talking. So when you initially allow her to speak, that's one click. Then she can either unmute herself or you can unmute her. But once you have allowed her to speak, she can unmute herself. So that's where a Zoom bomber could, if you were to hear, oh yeah, no, I'm not Jill Oberlander, I'm someone else. If you muted them, that wouldn't be enough. So you have to, everyone, when they're done, you disallow them to talk, and then they would have to raise their hand again. So it's a two-step process.
Okay, fair enough. And we will have, I have some time. I may request some of you to join in tomorrow at 2:00 to just do some practicing. No items or anything like that. So I'm just, because we have Ken here, so people will understand. They can get on the Zoom. They're going to see us. We're not going to see them. As their hand goes up, we're going to call them. Then we're going to lower their hand and move to the next speaker. And we're going to see this on the right-hand side as the attendees put their hands up. You're going to have a lot of attendees, but it's whoever puts their hand up first is going to go to the top of the screen. Downside, collating subjects. We've had suggestions. I still don't have anything that I can say I'm comfortable with. Normally at a public hearing, I'm going to think about who's been the clerk of the board. We take all of the people who want to talk about a school budget or who want to talk about a fire truck or who want to talk about whatever. We try to collate them. That may not be so easy to do. So we've had suggestions. I just haven't had one that I've felt comfortable with yet.
So
move down. I am suggesting, and obviously I'm going to go back to panelists real quick here. I'm suggesting normal 3-minute time rule. We call the speaker the on-deck speaker. We don't let anybody speak a second time until everybody goes first, so we're going to need to keep track of that. Peter Minarski, your hand's up.
The question is, let's say that Jill is speaking. How does she know when her 3 minutes are up? Are you going to warn her that it's 30 seconds? And the second question is are you immediately going to mute them at 3 minutes?
So I'll take a stab at the answer because I have Craig and Jenny here. And Peter Minarski, by the way, through all the years has always been our counter and our 30-second warning person. The problem is if you interrupt somebody, you're stopping their microphone from speaking while you interrupt them to tell them 30 seconds. I am thinking we're going to tell everybody that when 3 minutes comes, we're going to the next speaker. I'm open for suggestions. Laura Erickson's got her hand up, Jeff Raymer's got his hand up, and Miriam's got her hand up. So let's try it. Laura?
Just housekeeping, on the public comment form on the website, people are required to check a box that they are a resident. So I would suggest that people who are coming to speak at the virtual meeting also say they are a resident, just to be consistent. And I would also, for the purposes of minutes, if they have a difficult name, would ask them to spell their name.
Jenny, Craig, part of our instructional card. Thank you,
Yeah.
Laura.
Okay, and the other thing is the people who do speak, the text transcript is available afterwards. And so if they do speak in the text transcript, however they spell their name, if they do it correctly in there when they log on, it will also be available in the text transcript in case that is there, there's a problem with that.
Mr. Raymer.
In your verbal remarks a minute ago, you said that the public hearing is at 7:30. I'm sure you're remembering that it's posted at 7 o'clock.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just don't want confusion.
Time out 1 second. Time out. Let me just time out. Ken, did you catch that, Mr. Borsick?
Yes, I caught most of it. I think I've got it. I'm going to bug Jenny with or Jenny with questions if I have any. But I think it's pretty clear. I'll fold into the article that'll come out for tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bill, we're all trying to help you to make this complicated thing simple. It's going to be a little weird. Do you want to recognize the people and turn them off after 3 minutes, or you want me to do it as clerk, or Karen, or what's best?
Right now, I am believing that I'm going to try to stick to the plan with a little bit of practice. Maybe tomorrow I was going to have the clerk call the person.
You can do that.
We will have someone else lower that person's hand after they're speaking. Peter Minarski's doing the 30 seconds. We're gonna have somebody else lower their hand when they're done, remove them from speaking if there's any kind of a bombing or anything like that. So yes, I do think that's how it's gonna go.
That seems great. And Pete always does the 30 seconds. And so, but will he have a way to just close people off, or you or me, or who shuts them down when the time comes?
I believe we're going to time them and do the 30-second shutdown and call the next.
That's right. But who's pushing the button to close them down? You, me, or Pete?
No, it's not going to be Pete. It's either going to be you, myself, doing that.
Okay.
No, my suggestion, as we spoke earlier today, Bill, was that you're going to have enough trouble running the speakers, and it's very distracting if you have to unmute and mute people. My suggestion was to have third party, and I volunteered to do it, to be the person that unmutes them. And then when I get notification, either I time or I can get notification from somebody, I mute them and move them off and disable their speaking.
Okay,
let's
continue with the people who've put their hands up. I had Laura was Ms. Erickson, I had you with your hand up.
Oh, sorry, I have to lower my hand. I'm
Okay.
done. Thank you.
Ms. Cruiser?
So just two quick points. The first is I wonder as whether maybe Karen wants to have something like Pete typically shows and shares her screen at the 30-second. Because if one person does it, that person may not see that because there's so many of us on the screen, particularly if they're on a phone. But if it's shared, then it kind of takes over the entire screen. So that was the first point. The second point, I just wondered from a protocol standpoint, I'm assuming we're treating this as if we were live. So our only job is really to look thoughtful on the screen, right? At no point are we ever talking. So we have to just look thoughtful.
Like you're paying
Listen.
attention.
Is that right? Yeah, exactly.
Again,
there's nothing for us else to do.
I agree, other than I will say, if you look at our BET reference handbook, we've actually agreed to that. Yes, it's to take notes and what have
Oh,
you.
of course. But I'm saying we at no point are we is this any different in terms of we're not saying thank you, we're not doing anything with our mouths. We're listening, we're taking notes, and being attentive.
You're looking like the wise financial person that you are.
Hard.
Moving on to those who have raised their hand again. Ms. Moriarty.
Okay, I'm a rule follower. I wanted to find out, Pete has the great sign, the 30-second sign. He displayed it before. Pete, you want to hold it up? It works well for those people who are not using a virtual background. My question
backwards. No, is it backwards?
No, it's backwards to you, but
okay.
Not us.
I got it.
I wanted to ask Jenny or Craig on, everybody's screen has a panelist in different orders. So this only applies to those people who are connecting via a computer or an iPad that they're seeing the screen. But I believe the panelists are in different orders on different people's screens.
Yes, that's correct.
But you and Craig, who have blocked your video, are at the bottom. Are they at the bottom of everybody's screen?
I don't even see them.
Okay, so I was just hoping to put Pete someplace where.
He just turns off his video. If he turns off his video, he'll be in that same purgatory.
But I want Pete's 30-second sign to show up. I was thinking Pete could use
somebody needs to do a share screen. So if somebody who is a co-host can set that up on their laptop. I don't recommend doing it. Oh, Karen's going to show us. There we go. Imagine that's the 30-second screen. You see, so Karen is a co-host and she can share her screen. So in other meetings, we've designated the screen sharing co-host. So they can do the flag for the pledge. They can do the 30 seconds. They can show, maybe if the meeting's not moving along, they can show the agenda. There we go. Craig is showing you. Oh, he's got the voting clock. I forgot about that. We did that for the RTM. Go ahead, Craig. Talk about the timer. We have all kinds of stuff. We could build one for you for 3 minutes if you want. Same idea. We'll just keep resetting it. The problem with someone holding up a 30-second sign is the attendees would not see it. We as panelists would see it, but attendees would not.
My only other issue with that.
Can we please raise our hand?
Sorry.
I think I have the floor, right? That countdown clock I think is a little, it sends off a negative message. I think
it's intimidating.
I don't think it's appropriate for a public hearing. I see why it's appropriate for the RTM. So I don't think that's a good method. And so we may not have a method other than at 3 minutes when we cut off the video. I do think we should cut off the audio. We should say we need to cut it off now. Maybe we do that with 10 seconds to go so they have a minute to close, or to give them an extra 10 seconds just to close their comments.
Ms. Hess.
So I want to confirm something. So of all of the submissions that we've already received that will become part of the public record, they will not be reading that out unless they come into our meeting and raise their hand to read it. Otherwise, so we're going to have this written. Okay, Karen wants to comment on this. So I'm trying to think, there's two forms. There's the written in advance, and then there's the people who join our meeting to raise their hand.
The people that have submitted written comments have, if they want to read their letter again out loud at the public hearing, they can certainly do that as well.
But it's not going to be, it's not automatically going to be read. It's part of the public record.
Right.
And then anyone else who would like to, whether it's somebody who submitted a written submission or whether they just want to, somebody new, they have to actually attend our meeting and raise their hand.
Correct.
Continuing on with.
I had just one other thing before.
Parkington, please.
I can't.
I'm sorry, Mike, did you call me?
Yes, I did.
Oh, I actually like Craig's screen, but I would suggest that it be in reverse, and maybe it could just, if it's possible, make the screen sharing smaller and start at, whatever it is, 1 second, 2 seconds, moving up to the 3 minutes. I think it's less intimidating, but it gives a speaker a good sense of how much time they have left to reach 3 minutes.
Mr. Weisbrod.
So it seems to me that as difficult as it is, we should put the 30 seconds in. We should make it clear to all the participants, all the attendees, that we're struggling with the new technology. A lot of people want to speak. And while it may not seem user-friendly, they're going to go mute at the end of 33 minutes. And people should just be forewarned. All this stuff about screens and messages and clocks that go down, somehow I think it sounds too complicated. That's just me. I think 30 seconds seems reasonable. People should know that this is a little bit rigid, but hey, we're in a new world and there's a lot of people. I mean, if you just add up the number of people who want to speak times 33 minutes, this is a long meeting as it is. It's not going to be short. So why don't we just tell them they're going to just go mute at the end of 3 minutes and get to deal with it. That's all.
That was my plan.
Good.
My plan was to be, look, we're bound by the new state directive to do the card. We're bound. We must do that. We are doing that, and with Jenny and the transition team, it's looking like it's going to be wonderful. That we're the ones offering the public hearing in as normal a fashion as possible. The problem is we can try, but what happens is if I'm sitting here, if somebody starts counting to 100 right now, and you interrupt them to say 30 seconds, it takes the microphone from them, puts it to you, and then it's got to go back to them. People at our meetings typically always go past the 30-second warning. The only we could try that. We're going to experiment a little bit more tomorrow. I may work some of you to volunteer to practice, but I am right now. I'm at the point where we can reiterate it a few times during the night. It'll be clear at the 3-minute mark. It's because you're going to have people say, "Can I give 2 minutes of my time to somebody?" No, we're not. We don't. We typically never did that anyway. So we have to be somewhat firm and just raise the hands. There'll be questions about the call-in because the problem is we won't be able to identify the caller, so we have to be prepared for those. But I'm planning on calling on the digital list first. There'll be a whole list of attendees, and whoever puts their hand up first is how we're going to go in the order, and then we're going to lower their hand and then move on.
Mike, this is Jenny. Can I just ask a question about, is it an option, not that you would want it, but if someone were to not be able to complete in 3 minutes, are they allowed to come back and raise their hand again and speak for 3 more minutes, or is that their only 3 minutes they get?
As I said earlier, we're going to have to keep track of the list of speakers to prevent. We have always in the past, if time permits, allowed people to speak a second time. That's after we've exhausted the list the first time through.
Okay.
And Mike, my only point before was that we will have people that are dialing in that will not have the option of viewing a 30-second time clock. So for those people that are calling in, we'll just have to tell them that at the end of 3 minutes, because I don't know how else to do that other than to interrupt them to say you have 30 seconds.
Right.
And anyone that is going to be speaking should have an egg timer or a stopwatch, or so tell them ahead of time.
It doesn't work that way,
and
Jenny.
again, they won't do it. I know you're going to say they won't do it, but put the responsibility on them to set their own timer. If they have an iPhone, there's a place where you can set a timer so they can watch it as they're talking. They do it in Congress. They do it, people just have to take some personal responsibility as well.
Okay.
And if you tell them at the beginning of the meeting and give them a suggestion, go grab yourself an egg timer, do it on your iPhone, etc., at least some of them will do that and, take personal responsibility.
Okay, so tomorrow I have I just booked a webinar quickly at 2:00. I may send out an invite, and if I do that, there'll be a note attached to it. I may leave you as a attendee and then practice letting, hands go up and speaking and whatever. So we could play around with that. We have a meeting first in the morning, but I think I have it for 2:00, and I can send out an email. And why I want to unmute Ken for a second. Ken, are you able to understand the challenges we have and how we're trying to address it?
Oh, yeah, how I can explain that to the public is a big problem. But, I think it's clear everyone's just trying to do the best they can right now. And, recognizing speakers in an orderly fashion is going to be a challenge tomorrow. And I hope the speakers understand that. The people I've talked to certainly do. So I think let's do it as best we can tomorrow.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Anything else on how the public hearing is going to go? Let's try our 9 a.m. Monday, April 27th webinar on D-Day. Now, typically on decision day for the BET, I know for a fact in doing some homework, Roland's going to have to be a co-host to share documents. And he's preparing to put everything sort of in one document so he can kind of do page by page. That is going to be a difficult day. As I've tried to reach out, and I haven't gotten to everybody yet. I'm trying to reach out to all of our members, one-on-one to talk about how I envision this going. We start at 9:00 in the morning. I've got, and you'll get this obviously from me in a note from me. There's several thoughts about how to do combining items. There's got suggestions positive on that and negative. We typically, as a BET, try not to have motions to amend motions. We try to dispose of one motion and move to another. Then there's a challenge with that. Even I want to be as generous as I can, where typically if you're not on the winning side of a motion and you want to give us one more opportunity to change our mind on that, you have to be on the winning side for us to reconsider that. I'm willing to forego that with consensus. I think that I don't want to do that. I think we're trying to work our way through a major difficult situation. Again, speaking, we don't limit each other's speaking, other than we try to let everybody speak once before we let people speak again. The screen minus, I have Ken on the bottom of the screen, but other than that, it should be just what you're seeing here. We will have help from IT, Craig Jones and Jenny Larkin. We'll have help from them. But I see it should be 12 BET members, Roland and Peter. If anyone has anybody they think there's gonna, I don't see a need. For a budgetary question, I would say in the times we're dealing with, you should be able to get that information and question answered beforehand. So that's sort of how decision goes. We will take pauses, obviously, to stretch the legs. It's a pretty lengthy day. Roland will start out with the big sheet, what we call the big sheet. And it usually starts with the town departments, works its way through capital, the special funds, and what have you. It's the normal document that's in your budget book. It's going to take some work to get through that. It's going to take patience. It's going to take some effort. We have our workshop on Thursday morning. Am I correct? And I think I have at least a couple 3 hours scheduled for that. That one I'm probably much more relaxed. That one is more open mic, and I would encourage everyone to get any budget amendment forms. I'd like to use first thing Wednesday morning as your deadline to get those in the Roland. Roland will collate those into a book. I have had a request from some of you, thank you, by the way, to include other documents, backup documents. So I think there should be a handout as part of the package with what the fund balance is. I think there should be a handout for, the motions, the backup material, so people can see that. So if, you can, if you have a budget amendment form and you think there's a document that should go with that to explain it, I'm not against that. I think Roland may have my head after this, but I'm not against that. I think we're trying to do the right thing. So I see Mr. Weiss brought his hand up, followed by Ms. Erickson.
Thank you, Mike. My question is, given the technological challenges that we're under, the workshop becomes extremely important in order to make sure that the decision day works as smoothly as it can. The question is, I know there are a lot of discussions about various potential cuts and various changes that are not insignificant. Hence, I hope all of the proposals are submitted, well in advance of Thursday's workshop so that each of the members can consider it, give some thought to it, so that we can, to the extent possible, come to some high-level agreements at the Thursday workshop. So the question is, are you on that wavelength? And if so, when do you think we might see from you as chair some of the proposals about various amendments in terms of the major changes, cuts, if you will, that are being considered?
So I'll answer that and then I'll call on the next speaker. The answer is, I think I just said, I would like to have a Wednesday morning 8 o'clock goal to have everything ready to be packaged. Roland sends it out. And right now, there's only one form submitted, and I have 3 or 4 in draft that will be ready for then. So I would say to everybody here, as of right now, I see no submissions. There is one, I believe, but I can't remember who it is, and it's a revenue, and it came in quite some time ago, and it's fine. So if you don't put anything in, if you want to ask for a deadline, you got to be ready to go. So, okay, Ms. Erickson.
So I just want to confirm that for decision day, the booklet, if you will, of amendments to the budget will be posted as a public document. And I say this as someone who in years past has sat in the audience, and it's very hard to follow even in person. Sometimes some of the deliberations, I would hope that whoever attends our meeting virtually would have the benefit of that document.
I don't have the answer to that. Roland, have we done that in the past? He's got to unmute himself. Hey, hang on. He's.
Yep.
You gotta have
a consolidated packet for the amendments and distributed that.
Hang on one second, Roland. Hang on one second. You have to start again. You were muted.
Okay. We would put together a consolidated packet with all of the amendments that were being proposed, and that was distributed and posted on the website.
Case closed. Does that answer your question, Ms. Erickson?
It does. Thank you, Roland.
Okay.
I don't recall it being posted on the website, so that's good to hear that it will be available on Monday.
Ms. Tarkington? You have to remember to unmute yourself, Leslie.
I can't ever remember that document being posted as such. It's a draft document. And, Roland, I don't ever remember that being posted.
Leslie, you have to post it because it has to be available for people that are virtually. This is not the normal, may not be the normal practice, but if you are going to be discussing a document, you need to allow people to see the document if they're looking in or participate. It's a public meeting.
Sorry.
I think we need to check that because there's a lot of amendments and things that have come in the past. I hear what Karen says, but I think that needs to be run by legal, given the complexity of this day, of decision day.
I'm actually going to ask Mr. Raymer. He has been at as many of these as Ms. Tarkina. I remember walking into decision day, sometimes being handed forms that day, which would mean if they're posted, they would have to be posted 24 hours in advance. That would mean that we would not be able to accept them on decision day. And we've had that before. Plus, we've modified documents, obviously, on decision day. I remember them being in the room available. I don't ever remember us posting what Roland calls consolidation book. Mr. Raymer?
I agree.
That's it?
That's it. We'd never posted it before. It was distributed to us by Roland as we started the hearing process. I actually have kind of a recollection that last year, my Republican friends came in with their amendments just at the very end, just before the meeting itself. Don't I have that recollection correctly?
That were your friends? Yes, you are right on. We are your friends. But that is true.
That's true. Both pieces of it.
Mr. Drake.
I know we're all trying to follow FOIA and et cetera, but Laura has made a very good point. We're in the new world, and it is very confusing to follow these things. Couldn't we, Roland's response was a very good one. Post the thing in draft form 24 hours before. That doesn't mean it's frozen and we couldn't have a last minute addition, but just to bring a little order to this very confusing process, Laura's thinking productively about making a very democratic and open, transparent process. I think that's a suggestion that is a good one, and we should try to carry it out.
If I may, I'll let Mr. Raymer go first. Mr. Raymer, followed by Ms. Tarkington. He's muted. Jeff, you have to start again. Muted.
Yeah, unless you're going to take the position that you will not entertain amendments, you will not entertain motions that weren't put onto the list. I don't see how you can do that. I mean, I'd like to discourage that, but I don't think you can do that per se. So, I mean, the fact that we didn't do it in the past is no reason why we shouldn't try and do it now, just because it's so much harder for people when they're doing it in this virtual format, as I think Laura and Bill were saying.
Ms. Tarkington?
I think that our calendar makes what's even being discussed and what Bill proposed next to impossible. 24 hours before Monday's meeting from a FOIA standpoint means it really has to be posted on Thursday afternoon. And on Thursday, we have the workshop. So I think we have to think about, if we're talking about this, obviously we all want to be in compliance with FOIA, but I do think that this was not contemplated when this series of meetings was set up. And I think we need to thoughtfully think through what pragmatically we can accomplish. And, obviously I want to be as open with the public as possible, but I think that we're now setting up something that could make it just add a complexity that would, be difficult to actually meet that level of work given the time frame. And obviously posted meetings already.
Okay, before I have Mr. Drake, I have Ms. Vesalotis, I have Ms. Moriarty first, but hang on one second, everyone. Let me just see if I can share a screen real quick here. I think it's this screen. Does everybody see this? This is the call for the meeting, correct? Or agenda for the meeting? Everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. I will research it. It's very easy to go back to our minutes. I can tell you, I understand all the technical, but I don't see where the technical is any different than a prior year. Just the mere fact that we were on TV in prior years, we're on TV this year. That's the same. if you're going to post the motions, then I would have to take the opinion that the motions posted can be amended, approved, or disapproved. But that would mean any new motion, you'd need 2/3 vote to add a new motion to address decision. I will say the answer to this lies into a little research. I would say my plan would be to follow exactly what we've done in previous years, because there's no difference just because of the technical meetings. There's no difference, other than we will be sharing documents during the meeting. Any motion that we're working on should be in writing. We're going to share those live, and everybody's going to see those on TV. My position right now. So I want to go back to Ms. Moriarty, followed by Mr. Drake, followed by Ms. Fascilotis.
I just wanted to get to the logic of this. If FOI required us to post documents that we are looking at during a meeting, then we have violated FOI in all previous budget years where we didn't post this document. So now what we're talking about is to make it, because we're going on virtual where people aren't sitting in the rooms. I mean, I handed my packet to somebody in prior years because they couldn't follow along. It enhances the public's ability to follow what we're doing. And yes, we're going to have competing motions on the same topic, and we have new motions mentioned. We're not talking about doing a process any other than in the past, but we're talking about posting some background information, which we've all been looking at a table and we refer to constantly. We say, look at the next page, here's the next motion. To me, to not post it is doing a disservice to the public, regardless of what the lawyers say. And in running the meeting, you take motions on the fly, and last year that were different than a packet that was handed out in draft form. So I'm not sure how by posting it limits our options. Instead, I think it makes it more accessible to the public.
Well, right now we'll have we'll have 3 documents to post. So, Mr. Drake.
I'll be brief. I agree with what Leslie Moriarty just said. I just think it's a case of we all want to follow our procedures, but I also think all 12 of us want to make a complex process as simple and smooth as we can. So let's follow our procedures, but let's not let them hog tie us into complexity where it's hard to follow. Let's make it easy to follow.
Ms. Fascilotis?
Throughout this whole COVID thing, what I've heard the most from legal team is that you have to follow to the best of your ability the FOIA, knowing that there might be some slippage here and there, with posting a notice or something like that. So I think we just have to make best efforts of getting information out there. I mean, the difference I think here is that normally we would have a package of the amendments available, did we not, to the public so that they could, no, we never did that? Okay, so, I think then that we need to just follow our, procedures, but we can talk about it more. Okay. I mean, I do think that more research is needed though.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I want to look back through our minutes and see what we did in the past too. Okay, so are we done? Are we done? I closed the agenda. Hang on, is Mr. Raymer talking?
You got minutes too.
You have minutes to approve.
I'm second. Mr. Weisbrot had his hand up.
Thank you. I'm not sure if we want to leave this ambiguous. In other words, Leslie is mentioning that we want to post, I think Roland started this off by saying we should be posting the packets, which we hadn't done in previous years. Leslie embraced that, if I got it right, and Bill as well. I think it's probably worth solidifying that. I really think that would be something we should agree upon. I feel fairly strongly that that's the right way to go. Otherwise, we're going to wind up in a chaotic and unclear kind of a situation. That's just me. I don't know if others share that view.
Ms. Hess?
I agree that we need some further review on this. So what I would recommend, we're not going to solve it on this meeting right now. It sounds like a little bit of work needs to be done. We're all getting together on Thursday for the workshop. We're not going to file anything in advance of that meeting. So I would just recommend that we come up with a plan that Thursday that's generally agreeable on how we want to address it. But I feel like at this point, we're just going round and round a little. There have been good points that have been raised on both sides, and I think we should consider all of it. But my recommendation is let's let people do a little bit more work on it, and we can come back and discuss it further.
I see no other hands up. Okay. I closed down our agenda. I have nothing else under new business. That takes us to Chair's report. How do you say thank you to everybody? How do you say thank you to some of the transition team who have been at their desk for 3 weeks straight? How do you say thank you for people going to virtual meetings and covering meetings that they never covered before? How do you say thank you to the finance department for bearing with us and dealing with everything? I don't know if you can do that the right way. I don't know if there's a way to do that. We've got a short hurdle to go. I think we got to get through our, like I say, our workshop. That's always a more casual kind of discussion. And I would say that I'll say this as clear as I can. I think all of us have a job in front of us about judgment, not agreeing, not disagreeing, not right or wrong or yes or no. I think everybody needs to bring their best judgment to our decision day. This is a very unique time. I've been sort of outspoken on being there in 2008 and remembering when Ms. Tarkington and Mr. Raymer joined in at one term later, and I've researched all the votes and all the history back then of what was done, and some of it was good for the town, some of it wasn't, but we made it through. Mr. Weisbrot had asked me an inspirational question the other day on the phone. He goes, well, what would happen if we had passed our budget on the regular day? We didn't decide to postpone, which is about a month, to our decision day. And I said, that's exactly what happened in 2008. It happened in September, October, and the budget just began in July. And there's nothing we could do. I mean, we could encourage, and that's when the town took other routes. So it's going to be a week of resting up and getting ready, and we're going to try to get through this, and just, it's going to take a lot of respect of people's judgments, and I think that's what this is going to come down to. So minutes. Mr. Drake, would you like to move the minutes? I suggest I know there's some corrections that you've been agreeing to, but let's do the minutes one at a time, and would you call for additions or corrections and call for the vote on those yourself?
Sure. We have 4 sets of minutes, 2 from March 16th, 2 from April 1st. Let's start with the regular meeting minutes from March 16th. And I think I sent an email, Beth Crumick sent an email Sunday night, and I passed that around on about noon today. I would propose the minutes before you should be those that Beth circulated through OneDrive with that latest set of changes. So I'll move those if we have a second.
I'll second it. That's Beth Crumick.
And I guess you're going to make me recite the names here.
Actually, I have one suggested change, if it's possible. I raised my hand, but I don't know who's monitoring.
I'm sorry, that's my fault, Laura. I gave Bill the meeting to kind of conduct this instead of going back and forth. Ms. Erickson, go ahead.
And I apologize, this is last minute, but on the second page, on the second line, relating to the item about the United Way contribution, I know that we did not have representation in person from the United Way, so I'm a little uncomfortable including the dollar figure of the emergency fund. And my suggestion would be just to eliminate the 5 and the million and just say participate in an emergency fund.
Mr. Drake?
I have two comments on that. One is, it's probably fine. But the second one is, we can have a new policy. I think that anybody who makes changes to the minutes within the last 24 hours of the minutes has to bring brownies to Elaine Brown and me and the 12 members of the BET. So far, we have Ms. Crumick, Ms. Moriarty, and Ms. Erickson. We're going to waive the policy for today, but this is a policy going forward. With these
Fair
being
enough.
said, yes, we can make the changes that Laura says.
Okay, let me,
Wait a second.
Bill. Ms. Vassilotis has her hands up. I have my hands up. Ms. Tarkington has her hand up on this motion.
So who do you want to go first, Bill?
I'll take
Mike, call it Mike.
Ms. Vassilotis?
I'm uncomfortable with removing that because I based my decision on hearing that number from, I believe it was the first selectman's office. And I don't, I mean, obviously that's not what happened in the interim. It wasn't 5 million, it was 500,000. But again, I think the representation was made to us that would be the amount. And again, we feel uncomfortable removing that.
Ms. Tarkington?
I agree with the point that Ms. Vassilotis just provided. I clearly remembered the $5 million. 100,000 seemed not like a material amount, rather relative to the 5 million, and that impacted my decision. I think it's part of the televised record. I believe there was even more detail provided, and I would certainly not support this particular change to the minutes.
Ms. Crumick has her hand up.
What if you put a word before the 5 million? And I'm just thinking what would be the best word, but a potential or it's not estimated, but it's a possible something. Others could help me. I'm not wordsmithing well here, but I think something that would indicate that it was not an absolute number that we were getting. It was inspirational. Anybody got a word that might fit in there?
I don't see a hand up. Mr. Raymer, are you making a motion to postpone these minutes to our next meeting?
What an excellent idea.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Tarkington. Discussion on the motion to postpone these minutes to our next meeting.
I'll entertain a discussion. You have two people that want it one way and one person wants it another. Unless nobody's going to change their minds, putting it off for a month doesn't achieve anything. Could the three of you kind of make a call here now while you got 12 people waiting on you?
I would support deferring these because I think it's a little bit more complicated than what you're presenting.
Okay, on the motion to postpone these minutes till our next meeting, our next regular meeting, I think that's what I heard Mr. Raymer say. Can you have a roll call vote on this, please, Mr. Drake?
Okay, Ms. Cruiser,
Yes.
Ms. Hess,
Yes.
Ms. Crumick,
Yes.
Ms. Moriarty,
Yes.
Ms. Tarkington,
Yes.
Mr. Mason.
Yes.
I'm a no. Ms. Vassilotis,
Karen Vassilotis says yes.
Mr. Raymer,
Yes.
Mr. Deuce,
Yes.
Mr. Weisbrod,
Yes.
Ms. Erickson.
Yes.
That was 11-1. Okay, so now we have the March 16th workshop minutes. And to those, I think Ms. Moriarty had a modification she wanted. And that means brownies, but we're going to forego that.
Yes.
We were postponing all the minutes. Was
No.
that Mr. Raymer's
No,
motion?
we're not postponing
No.
all.
Oh, no? Okay.
So the change, first of all, the brownie rule did not meet the FOIA requirements for 24-hour postings. So I claim that I don't need to meet that. I just noticed that the minutes reference topics we discussed, and it had it had a topic to say to add back in the police officers on Greenwich Avenue funding for those when the budget committee had done that. So the comment, I believe, was to delete that funding, and I suggest that change be made.
For my part, I think that's right. Right? The budget committee members can say that that's right, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Can I just ask a question? Was that meeting, the March 16th meeting, actually on community TV? Because if it was, I had difficulty trying to find it.
I don't have the answer to that.
It was held in the town hall meeting room. The intent was that it would be on TV.
I believe that was the day they were still putting in the equipment. We were, I think 8 of us were there and 4 of us were not, and we were arrayed around the room. I don't think video was working that day.
That is.
Right, so with Ms. Moriarty's small modification, I'll move the March 16th workshop minutes.
I'll second.
So we're going to vote starting with Ms. Erickson's side of the room. Ms. Erickson.
Yes.
Mr. Weisbrod.
Yes.
Mr. Deuce.
Yes.
Mr. Raymer.
Yes.
Ms. Fastliotis.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Mason.
Yes.
Ms. Tarkington.
Yes.
Ms. Moriarty.
Yes.
Ms. Kremick.
Yes.
Ms. Hess.
I'm just confused because I thought the comment we just made was in the March 16th minutes.
There's 2 minutes. There's regular meeting minutes and workshop minutes from that date. So we postponed the regular meeting minutes and we're now making a tweak to the workshop minutes.
I'm just because I looked at this.
So the ones, Elaine did make the proposed change already, I believe, because Bill asked for it to be made, but the minutes in our packet is before the change. I don't know if you're looking at the OneDrive version or the packet.
I'm looking at the packet version.
Okay.
So the 5 million reference, I just want to be clear.
That's not what we're voting on.
That's not what we're talking about. That's been disposed of.
Fine. Okay. So then, yes, I'm sorry because it was just I'm looking at it in the packet. Yes.
This has to do with police on the avenue.
Yep. Approve.
Ms. Cruiser.
Yes.
Okay, that was 12-0. Now we have 2 sets of April 1st minutes. I'll move that first set. Let's see, which one do we have first in your package? The workshop. So I'll move the April 1st workshop minutes. I don't think anybody had any changes.
Second. I'll second that.
You want me to read these names again? Or can you do it unanimously?
No, not under this, under these regulations. It has to be a separate roll call.
Yeah, Ms. Cruiser?
Yes.
Ms. Hess?
Abstaining because I missed that first meeting.
Ms. Kremick?
Yes.
Ms. Moriarty?
Yes.
Ms. Tarkington?
Yes.
Mason?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Fastliotis?
Karen says yes.
Mr. Raymer?
Yes.
Mr. Deuce?
Yes.
Mr. Weisbrod?
Yes.
Ms. Erickson?
Yes, but Bill, I'll note that you're marked as absent for that meeting as well as Deborah.
Thank you for, I sure was. And so I'll change my vote. Thank you, Laura. So I'm an abstention. And therefore that vote was 10-0 and 2 abstentions.
Right.
So then the April 1st, the other one.
Orientation.
The orientation. Same thing. I'll move them, even though I'm going to have to abstain.
I will second that motion.
Okay, let's start with Ms. Erickson.
Yes.
Mr. Weisbrod.
Yes.
Mr. Deuce.
Yes.
Mr. Raymer,
Yes.
Ms. Fasiotis.
Yes.
I'm an abstention. Mr. Mason,
Yes.
Ms. Tarkington,
Yes.
Ms. Moriarty,
Yes.
Ms. Krumik,
Yes.
Ms. Hess,
Yes, sorry.
Ms. Cruiser.
Abstain. I'm sorry. Yes. I don't abstain.
So that was 11-0-1, and I was the abstention. And the mission is completed.
Well, we made it. We finished. Can I get a motion to?
I make a motion to adjourn.
That's
Seconded.
not the order, David. You're jumping us. We're the
Cruiser
newbies.
or Erickson?
Seconded by Ms. Krumik. All those in favor, raise your hand. We have to do one of these this way.
Somewhere, I can't find my hand.
We'll see you all tonight at the RTM meeting, probably, right?
Yep.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.